5 years. 1,826 days since Marcus Ashford's face had formed anything resembling a smile. His employees knew it. His board members whispered about it. The tabloids speculated endlessly about what had turned Manhattan's youngest self-made billionaire into a man whose expression never shifted from cold calculation. But on an ordinary Tuesday morning in a crowded midtown diner, everything changed in the span of 3 seconds. 3 seconds of hot coffee arcing through the air. 3 seconds of a horrified gasp. 3 seconds before his expensive Italian wool absorbed an entire pot of French roast. And 3 seconds before he looked up into the most terrified brown eyes he'd ever seen and felt something crack inside his chest, something that had been frozen solid for half a decade. If you want to discover how a clumsy accident shattered 5 years of carefully constructed walls and transformed 2 broken souls into something whole, subscribe now. Leave a like if you believe that sometimes the most beautiful things in life begin with disasters, and tell me in the comments what country you're listening from. Your presence here means everything. The morning had started like every other morning for the past 5 years. Marcus woke at exactly 5:15 in his glass penthouse overlooking Central Park. The skyline of Manhattan spread before him like a kingdom he'd conquered but couldn't feel. He went through his routine with mechanical precision. 45 minutes of exercise, a cold shower that matched the temperature of his emotional state, a breakfast he didn't taste prepared by a chef he barely acknowledged. By 7:30, he was dressed in one of his dozen identical charcoal suits, each custom-tailored, each costing more than most people earned in 3 months. The suit was armor. The expressionless face was a fortress. And inside that fortress, Marcus Ashford was utterly, devastatingly alone. His driver, Thomas, had been with him for 8 years and knew better than to attempt conversation during the morning commute. The partition stayed up. Marcus reviewed contracts and market reports on his tablet, his blue-gray eyes scanning numbers that represented millions of dollars in transactions, mergers that would change lives, decisions that held power over thousands of employees. None of it touched him. None of it reached past the ice. The board meeting was scheduled for 8:30 at Ashford Tower, the gleaming monument to his success that pierced the Manhattan skyline like a shard of glass and steel. But Marcus had a different routine every Tuesday morning, one that nobody knew about, one that he would never admit to needing. He had Thomas drop him 4 blocks away, at a completely unremarkable diner called Rosie's, that existed in the shadow of luxury high-rises like a stubborn dandelion growing through concrete cracks. The place was nothing special. Cracked vinyl booths, a counter with spinning stools that squeaked, fluorescent lights that flickered occasionally, the perpetual smell of bacon grease and coffee that had been sitting too long on the burner. It was the opposite of everything Marcus's life had become, and that was exactly why he came here, in this anonymous space where nobody recognized him without his usual entourage, where he was just another man in an expensive suit grabbing breakfast before work. He could pretend for 20 minutes that he was human, that he was normal, that he hadn't locked every feeling behind walls so thick nothing could penetrate them. He always sat in the same booth in the back corner, always ordered the same thing, black coffee and wheat toast, dry. He never spoke beyond his order. He never made eye contact. He sat. He consumed his breakfast with the efficiency of refueling a machine. He left exact change plus a 20% tip calculated to the penny, and he disappeared back into his real life. But this Tuesday was different. This Tuesday, the regular waitress, Helen, who had served him in comfortable silence for 3 years, wasn't there. Instead, there was chaos incarnate in a powder blue uniform that looked 2 sizes too big. Emma Chen was having the worst morning of her life, which was saying something considering the past 6 months had been a systematic destruction of everything she'd once counted on. She'd overslept because her phone had died, because she'd forgotten to pay the electricity bill, because between juggling 3 jobs and night classes and taking care of her grandmother, something always fell through the cracks. She'd thrown on her spare uniform, which she'd bought second-hand and had never properly altered, run 14 blocks because she couldn't afford the subway, and arrived at Rosie's 17 minutes late to find her manager, Frank, looking at her with disappointment that hurt worse than anger. This was her best job, the one with the most hours, the one she couldn't afford to lose. Frank was a decent man, but business was business, and lateness was lateness. One more strike, and she'd be gone. So Emma was moving too fast, trying too hard, her hands shaking slightly from anxiety and low blood sugar because she'd given her breakfast to her grandmother that morning. She was carrying too much, a full pot of coffee in one hand, a tray of plates balanced on the other, weaving between tables in the crowded morning rush while her mind raced through everything she still had to do today. She didn't see the briefcase jutting into the aisle. Her foot caught it with enough force to send her stumbling forward, and everything happened in horrible slow motion. The coffee pot tilted, the dark liquid creating a perfect arc through the air, and Emma watched in absolute horror as it descended directly onto the man sitting in the corner booth. The man who radiated wealth and power even in stillness. The man whose suit probably cost more than her entire year's rent. The man who was about to have every reason to get her fired, arrested, or possibly both. The coffee hit him full force across the chest and lap, spreading across expensive fabric like a stain on everything Emma had been desperately trying to hold together. The entire diner went silent. Every conversation stopped. Every fork paused mid-air. Even the cook looked out from the kitchen, his face going pale. And Emma stood there, empty coffee pot still clutched in her trembling hand, knowing with absolute certainty that her life had just gone from terrible to catastrophic. Marcus felt the heat of the coffee through his suit, felt the liquid soaking through to his shirt, felt the burn that would definitely leave marks on his skin. For 5 years, nothing had penetrated his control. For 5 years, he had maintained absolute composure in every situation. For 5 years, his face had a mask of cold indifference, but something about this moment, about the sheer absurdity of it, about the way this small woman stood frozen in obvious terror, her face drained of all color, her entire body shaking, her eyes wide and filled with a fear so genuine it was almost palpable, made something inside him shift. He looked up at her slowly, taking in every detail with the intense focus he usually reserved for billion-dollar negotiations. She was tiny, maybe 5'2", drowning in a uniform that had clearly been made for someone else. Her black hair was falling out of a hasty ponytail. Her face was makeup-free and showed every emotion with painful transparency. And those brown eyes, those impossibly expressive brown eyes, were currently filled with the kind of fear usually reserved for natural disasters. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, and her voice was breaking. "I'm so sorry. I didn't see. I wasn't looking. I'll pay for the cleaning. I'll pay for everything. Please don't. Please, I can't." And then she stopped, because her voice had failed completely, and tears were starting to spill down her cheeks. Marcus watched a tear trace down her face, and felt something he hadn't felt in 5 years. He felt something move in his chest, something warm, something almost painful in its unfamiliarity. This woman was terrified, genuinely terrified, and it wasn't performance or manipulation. It was raw, honest fear, and beneath that fear was exhaustion so profound it radiated from her like heat. She looked like she was holding herself together with willpower alone, like this one accident might be the thing that finally broke her. And for the first time in 5 years, Marcus Ashford felt the urge to comfort someone, the urge to make something better instead of just more efficient, the urge to see someone smile instead of just sign contracts. "It's fine," he said, and his voice came out rougher than he'd intended, rusty from disuse in any context that involved actual emotion. The woman, Emma, according to her name tag, looked at him like he'd spoken in a foreign language. "What?" "It's fine," he repeated. And then, something extraordinary happened, something that would later become the most talked about moment in Manhattan business circles, something that would make his assistant faint when she heard about it, something that marked the end of 5 years of frozen existence. Marcus Ashford smiled. It wasn't a big smile. It wasn't the kind of smile that showed teeth or transformed his whole face. It was small, slightly crooked, and probably rusty from 5 years of disuse. But it was genuine. It was real. And it was the first smile that had touched his face since the day his world had fallen apart. "It's just a suit," he said softly. "I have others." Emma stared at him like he'd grown a second head. The entire diner was still silent, everyone watching this interaction with the fascination usually reserved for car accidents. Frank, the manager, was slowly approaching, clearly preparing to fire Emma on the spot and possibly grovel to this obviously wealthy customer. But Marcus held up one hand, stopping him without even looking in his direction. His eyes were fixed on Emma, on the way disbelief was slowly replacing terror in her expression, on the way she was still shaking but breathing a little easier. "You're sure?" she asked, and her voice was so small, so fragile. "I'm sure," Marcus said, and then, because something in him wanted to see what she looked like when she wasn't terrified, he added, "Though I might need some napkins." The absurdity of it, the powerful man soaked in coffee asking politely for napkins, broke something in the tension. A small, slightly hysterical laugh escaped Emma's throat. She clapped her hand over her mouth immediately, eyes going wide again, but Marcus felt that strange warmth in his chest expand. "Right, yes, napkins," she said, and practically ran to get them. As she rushed away, Marcus caught sight of his reflection in the chrome napkin dispenser. He looked exactly the same as always. Cold, controlled, untouchable. Except for that small smile still playing at the corners of his mouth. Except for the way his eyes, for the first time in 5 years, looked alive. The next 20 minutes were a blur of activity. Emma returned with what appeared to be every napkin in the diner, her hands still shaking as she tried to help clean up the mess she'd made. Marcus waved away her attempts, oddly charmed by her frantic apologies that continued to spill out between scattered words about dry cleaning bills and replacement costs. Frank hovered nearby, clearly torn between damage control and complete confusion about why his wealthiest-looking customer wasn't demanding someone's head on a platter. Other customers had returned to their breakfasts, though several kept glancing over with obvious curiosity. Marcus accepted the napkins and did his best to blot the coffee from his suit, knowing it was completely ruined. The fabric would never recover from this kind of staining. $10,000 down the drain, because someone had been moving too fast, too tired, too overwhelmed to watch where they were going. And somehow, impossibly, he didn't care. He should care. The old Marcus, the Marcus from an hour ago, would have cared, would have been coldly furious, would have demanded compensation and probably gotten the woman fired just to make a point about consequences and responsibility. But looking at Emma's face, at the genuine distress there, at the way she kept apologizing even as she helped him clean up, all he felt was that strange, unfamiliar warmth. When she finally stepped back, her uniform now also spotted with coffee stains, her face flushed with embarrassment and residual fear, Marcus found himself not wanting the interaction to end. Found himself wanting to know why she looked so exhausted, what was causing that deep weariness in her eyes, what had put those dark circles beneath them. "You work here often?" he asked, and immediately felt foolish. It was possibly the most mundane question in existence. Emma blinked. Yes. I mean, this is one of my jobs." "One of them?" Marcus heard himself ask. She flushed deeper. "I work 3 jobs. This one, a dry cleaner in the afternoons, and I do data entry at night, plus classes." She said it matter-of-factly, like it was completely normal to work herself into the ground, like it was just the way life was. And maybe for her it was. Marcus felt something twist in his chest, something that might have been recognition. He remembered working 3 jobs once, back before Ashford Industries, back when he'd been clawing his way up from nothing. He remembered that bone-deep exhaustion, that sense of running on a treadmill that never stopped. "That sounds difficult," he said quietly. Emma shrugged, but he could see the way her shoulders sagged slightly. "It is what it is. I have responsibilities." Before Marcus could ask what responsibilities, Frank appeared at his elbow. "Sir, I apologize profusely for this incident. Your meal is of course complimentary, and if there's anything we can do to make this right." Marcus cut him off with a look. It was an accident. These things happen, but Frank seemed to feel the need to continue his damage control. "Emma is usually much more careful. She's a good worker. Just having a rough morning. She won't be reprimanded for this, I assure you." "Actually," Marcus said, surprising himself again, "I'd like her to continue as my server. If she's willing." Emma's head snapped up. "What?" "I come here every Tuesday," Marcus explained, still not quite sure why he was saying this, why he was creating a reason to see this woman again. "It would be convenient to have someone familiar with my order. That is, if you work Tuesdays?" Emma nodded slowly, confusion clear on her face. "I work Tuesday through Saturday, 6 to 2. "Perfect," Marcus said. "Then I'll see you next week." And with that, he stood, carefully extracted his wallet from his coffee-soaked jacket, and placed $200 bills on the table. "One for the coffee I didn't get to drink," he said to Emma's widening eyes, "and one because I think you've had a hard enough morning without losing your tip." "Wait." Emma started, but Marcus was already moving toward the door. "I can't accept. It's too much, please." "Keep it," Marcus said over his shoulder. "Buy yourself breakfast. You look like you could use it." And then he was gone, stepping out into the Manhattan morning, his ruined suit squelching with every step, his driver's face going pale when he saw the state of him, and that strange, unfamiliar smile still playing at his lips. Inside the diner, Emma stood holding $200 and feeling like reality had just tilted sideways. Frank was staring at her. The other waitresses were whispering, and all Emma could think about was the way that severe, cold-looking man had smiled at her. Small and rusty and real. Like she'd accidentally cracked something open that had been sealed shut for a very long time. Marcus canceled his board meeting. His assistant Patricia nearly had a stroke when he called from the car. "You what?" she said, her voice climbing an octave. "You canceled? You never cancel." "There's been an accident," Marcus said, looking down at his coffee-stained suit. "I need to change. Also, find out everything you can about a diner called Rosie's in Midtown. Specifically, about one of their waitresses." Patricia was silent for a long moment. "Sir, are you feeling all right?" "I'm fine," Marcus said. And then, because that smile was still tugging at his mouth, better than fine, actually. Now Patricia really did sound worried. "Should I call your doctor?" "Just get me the information," Marcus said, "and clear my Tuesday mornings, going forward." "Permanently, sir. Your Tuesday mornings are when you have your standing meetings with the acquisitions team. They'll have to move," Marcus said. "Something more important has come up." He hung up before Patricia could ask what could possibly be more important than a standing meeting that controlled millions of dollars in quarterly acquisitions. The truth was, Marcus didn't have an answer. He just knew that for the first time in 5 years he was looking forward to next Tuesday, looking forward to seeing whether Emma's eyes would still have that wariness in them, whether she'd still look exhausted, whether he could make her laugh instead of cry. Looking forward to something that had nothing to do with business, nothing to do with money, nothing to do with the empire he'd built. Just a woman in an oversized uniform who'd spilled coffee on him and somehow, impossibly, made him feel human again. The week that followed was strange for Marcus. He went through his usual motions, the meetings and decisions and power plays that defined his existence, but something had shifted. Colors seemed brighter. Food had taste again. He caught himself noticing things he'd stopped seeing years ago. The way light reflected off glass buildings. The sound of rain against windows. The smell of coffee that no longer just registered as caffeine delivery system but as something rich and complex. His employees noticed the change immediately and had no idea what to make of it. Marcus Ashford was known for his utter predictability, his machine-like consistency. But suddenly he was unpredictable. He'd pause in the middle of meetings and stare out windows. He'd smile slightly at random moments. Once, horrifyingly, he'd asked his assistant how her weekend had been and actually listened to the answer. The rumors started immediately. He was sick. He was having a breakdown. He'd met someone. That last one was closest to the truth, though calling what had happened between him and Emma a meeting felt inadequate. It had been a collision. A disaster. A crack in the foundation of everything Marcus had built his life on, and he couldn't wait for it to happen again. Tuesday morning arrived with rain, a soft spring drizzle that turned Manhattan into something gentler. Quieter. Marcus found himself standing in front of his closet for longer than usual, trying to decide what to wear. Not the charcoal suits. Those were armor, and armor was the last thing he wanted between himself and Emma. He chose navy instead, slightly less severe, and caught himself actually caring about which tie to select. Thomas said nothing about the change in routine when Marcus asked to be dropped at Rosie's again, but his eyebrows rose slightly when Marcus checked his reflection in the car window before getting out. Marcus ignored him and stepped into the drizzle, not bothering with an umbrella for the short walk to the diner's entrance. The bell above the door chimed when he entered, and Marcus felt his heart rate pick up in a way that had nothing to do with caffeine and everything to do with anticipation. The diner was less crowded than last week, the rain keeping some people home. And there, refilling coffee at the counter, was Emma. She looked up when the bell chimed, and her eyes went wide when she saw him. For a moment they just looked at each other across the distance of the diner. Marcus saw her take in his presence, saw something flicker across her face that might have been pleasure before wariness took over again. He made his way to the same booth in the back, hyper-aware of her watching him, hoping she'd be the one to come take his order. She was. Emma approached his table slowly, order pad in hand, and Marcus could see she was nervous. She looked better than last week, less exhausted, though those dark circles were still there beneath her eyes. The too large uniform was the same, but her hair was neatly pulled back, and there was a small band-aid on her hand that hadn't been there before. "Good morning," she said, her voice careful and professional. "I promise not to spill anything on you today." Marcus felt that smile pull at his mouth again. That's disappointing. I was looking forward to another excitement-filled breakfast. Emma's lips twitched like she was fighting her own smile. "I think one ruined suit per customer is my limit." $10,000 limit? Marcus asked, and watched her eyes go wide. "You knew how much? Oh God, I'm so sorry again, I should have." "I was joking," Marcus said quickly. "It was just a suit. Though I admit I'm curious why you assumed it was expensive." Emma flushed slightly. "You don't exactly look like someone who shops at discount stores." "Fair point," Marcus acknowledged. "Black coffee and wheat toast?" Emma asked, surprising him. "You remembered." "You come here every Tuesday," Emma said. "Helen mentioned you're a creature of habit." Something about the way she said it, matter of fact but with an undercurrent of something warmer, made Marcus's chest tighten. "I suppose I am. Or, I was. Lately I've been thinking about changing some habits." "Why?" Emma asked, and then looked startled that she'd asked. "Sorry. That's none of my business." "It's fine," Marcus said. And because something about her made him want to be honest in a way he hadn't been honest in years, he added, "Because I realized that some habits are just ways of avoiding actually living." Emma's eyes met his, and something passed between them. Understanding, maybe. Recognition. She knew what he meant. He could see it in the way her expression softened slightly. "I'll get your coffee," she said quietly. "Try not to wear it this time." This time Marcus's smile was bigger, and Emma's answering smile as she walked away made something in his chest feel lighter than it had in 5 years. Emma brought his coffee without incident, though her hands shook slightly when she set it down. Marcus pretended not to notice, the same way he pretended not to notice the way she lingered just a second longer than necessary, or the way she glanced back at him twice as she walked away. He drank his coffee slowly, making it last, watching Emma work. She moved through the diner with practiced efficiency, refilling cups and taking orders, and delivering plates with a grace that contradicted last week's clumsiness. This was someone who knew her job, who was good at it. Last week had been an aberration, a moment of being overwhelmed. Marcus found himself angry on her behalf that she had to be overwhelmed at all. 3 jobs, classes, responsibilities she'd mentioned but not explained. It was too much for anyone to carry, and yet she carried it with dignity, with determination, with a strength that made something in Marcus ache with recognition. When she brought his toast, Marcus made a decision. "Do you get a break?" he asked. Emma blinked. "What?" "A break," Marcus repeated. "Do you get one during your shift?" Yes. Usually around 9:30. "Why?" "Would you sit with me?" Marcus asked, and felt absurdly nervous asking. "Just for a few minutes. I'd like to talk to you." Emma's eyes went wide. "Talk to me? About what?" "About why you work 3 jobs, Marcus said honestly. About what responsibilities keep you running yourself into the ground. About why someone as young as you looks like they carry the weight of the world." Emma's face did something complicated, cycling through surprise and wariness and something that might have been longing before settling on caution. "I don't think that's appropriate." "Why not?" Marcus asked. "Because you're a customer." "Because I don't know you." "Because," Emma stopped, seeming to struggle for words, "because I spilled coffee all over you, and you were nice about it. And I don't understand why. And that makes me nervous." "I was nice about it," Marcus said quietly, "because it was an accident and you were clearly terrified, and I haven't met anyone in 5 years who showed me that much genuine emotion in 30 seconds. Everyone in my life is performing something. You were just real." Emma stared at him. "I don't know what to say to that." "Say you'll sit with me for 10 minutes, Marcus said. "Please." There was a long pause. Around them the diner continued its morning rhythm, but in their small bubble, everything felt suspended, waiting. Finally, Emma nodded. 10 minutes. When I take my break." "Thank you," Marcus said, and meant it more than he'd meant anything in recent memory. Emma walked away, and Marcus returned to his coffee, aware that his heart was racing, aware that he was nervous in a way he hadn't been nervous since his first major business pitch years ago. This mattered. She mattered. He didn't understand why yet. Didn't understand what it was about this exhausted waitress that had cracked through 5 years of carefully maintained ice. But he wanted to find out. Needed to find out. At 9:30 exactly, Emma returned to his booth carrying 2 cups of coffee. One for each of them. She slid into the seat across from him, and Marcus was struck by how small she looked in the big vinyl booth. How young despite the weariness in her eyes. "So," she said, wrapping her hands around her coffee cup. "You want to know about my life. If you're willing to share," Marcus said, "I'll trade you. You tell me something real about yourself. I'll tell you something real about me." Emma studied him for a long moment, her dark eyes searching his face for something. Apparently she found it, because she nodded slowly. "Okay. You first." Marcus took a breath. 5 years ago, I stopped smiling. Stopped feeling anything, really. I built an empire but forgot to build a life, and I've spent half a decade as essentially a very wealthy robot. Last week when you spilled coffee on me was the first time in 5 years I felt anything resembling a real emotion. You made me smile. And I've been thinking about you every day since. Emma's eyes were huge. That's a lot to share with a stranger." "We're not strangers," Marcus said. "We're 2 people who had coffee together. Literally." Emma's lips twitched. "That's a terrible joke." "I know," Marcus said. "I'm out of practice. Your turn." Emma looked down at her coffee, and when she spoke, her voice was quiet. "My grandmother raised me after my parents died when I was 8. She's the only family I have. 6 months ago, she had a stroke. She survived, but she needs full-time care now. And I can't afford the kind of facility she needs on what I make. So I work 3 jobs and take night classes to finish my degree because a degree means better job prospects, means better money, means better care for her. And I'm so tired I can barely see straight most days, but I keep going because she kept going for me when I needed her. Marcus felt something break open in his chest. The coffee, he said slowly. Last week, you gave your breakfast to your grandmother, didn't you? That's why you were shaky. Low blood sugar. Emma nodded. I do that sometimes. She needs to eat more than I do. No, Marcus said, and his voice came out fiercer than he'd intended. No. Emma, you both need to eat. You can't take care of her if you work yourself to death. I manage, Emma said, but there was a tremor in her voice. Do you? Marcus asked gently. Because from where I'm sitting, you look like you're one bad day away from collapse. Emma's eyes filled with tears, and she blinked rapidly, looking away. I don't have a choice. Everyone has choices, Marcus said. Some are just harder than others. Let me help. Emma's head snapped around. What? Let me help, Marcus repeated. I have resources. I can arrange care for your grandmother, better care than you can currently afford. I can. No, Emma said firmly. Absolutely not. Emma, please. I said no. Emma stood up abruptly. I don't need your charity. I don't need to be your project or your good deed or whatever this is. I appreciate that you were nice about the coffee thing, but I'm not some broken bird for you to fix. She was breathing hard, her hands clenched at her sides, and Marcus realized he'd badly miscalculated. Had pushed too hard, too fast, had tried to solve her problems with money the way he solved every problem with money. I'm sorry, he said quietly. You're right. That was presumptuous of me. Emma nodded stiffly. I need to get back to work. Wait, Marcus said as she started to walk away. Just wait. One more minute. Emma stopped, but didn't turn around. What if it wasn't charity? Marcus asked. What if I just wanted to know you better? Wanted to have coffee with you again next Tuesday, and the Tuesday after that, and maybe eventually take you to dinner somewhere that isn't a diner. What would you say then? Emma turned slowly. Why? Why me? Marcus stood up, closing the distance between them slightly but being careful not to crowd her. Because you're real, because you made me feel something I thought was dead. Because when I look at you, I see someone fighting so hard to do the right thing, and I admire that more than I can express. Because I haven't stopped thinking about you for 7 days straight. Emma's breath caught. I don't understand you. I don't understand me either right now, Marcus admitted. But I'd like to figure it out. With you, if you're willing. Emma looked at him for a long moment, and Marcus could see the war happening behind her eyes. Wariness fighting with something that might have been hope. Finally, she spoke. Just coffee. Here. Tuesdays. Nothing more until I figure out what this is. Marcus felt relief flood through him. That's perfect. Emma nodded slowly. Okay then, I'll see you next Tuesday. Same booth. Same time. Marcus smiled, and it felt more natural now, easier. Same booth. Same time. Emma walked away to tend to her other tables, and Marcus sat back down, his untouched toast now cold but his chest warm. It wasn't a solution to her problems. It wasn't even really a date. But it was a beginning. And for a man who hadn't had a beginning in 5 years, that felt like everything. The following Tuesday came with bright sunshine that made Manhattan gleam like something newly minted. Marcus arrived at Rosie's at exactly the same time as the week before, but this time when Emma saw him, she didn't look wary, she looked pleased. A small smile touched her lips before she caught it. Tried to tuck it away, but Marcus had seen it, and felt answering warmth bloom in his chest. He took his usual booth. She brought his usual order, and when her break came at 9:30, she slid into the seat across from him with 2 cups of coffee like it was already their tradition. So, she said, wrapping her hands around her cup in a gesture he was coming to recognize as comfort-seeking. Your turn to share something real. Marcus thought about what to tell her, what piece of himself to offer up. He'd spent 5 years keeping everyone at arm's length, revealing nothing, trusting no one. But something about Emma made him want to be known. I had a daughter, he said quietly. Her name was Lily. She died 5 years ago. The coffee cup froze halfway to Emma's mouth. Oh my God, I'm so sorry I didn't. It's all right, Marcus said, though his voice was rough. You didn't know. Nobody knows. I don't talk about it. What happened? Emma asked, gently. If you want to tell me. She was 6, Marcus said, and even after 5 years, saying it hurt, the most beautiful, bright, happy child you could imagine. She had this laugh that sounded like bells. She loved butterflies and strawberries, and she wanted to be a veterinarian when she grew up, because she said animals needed doctors too. He paused, swallowed hard. Leukemia. We tried everything. Every treatment, every specialist, every experimental trial. I would have spent every penny I had to save her, but money can't fix everything. Sometimes there just isn't a cure. He looked up to find tears streaming down Emma's face. She wasn't trying to hide them or wipe them away. She was just crying openly, her heart right there on her face, aching for his loss. That's why you stopped smiling, she whispered. Marcus nodded. The day she died, I made a choice. I couldn't survive feeling that much pain, so I chose to feel nothing at all. I threw myself into work. Built my company bigger, made more money, acquired more properties. Stayed so busy I didn't have time to remember what I'd lost. It worked, mostly. Until you spilled coffee on me and looked at me with those eyes, and I felt something crack. Emma reached across the table and took his hand. The gesture was so simple, so natural, but it sent electricity racing up Marcus's arm. I'm so sorry, she said. No parent should have to bury their child. Thank you, Marcus said quietly. Your turn. Tell me something real. Emma was quiet for a moment, still holding his hand, and when she spoke her voice was soft. My grandmother has dementia. It started before the stroke, but we didn't know it was dementia then. We just thought she was getting forgetful. After the stroke, it got worse. Some days she knows me. Some days she thinks I'm my mother. Some days, she doesn't know anyone at all, and the worst part is watching her slip away piece by piece, knowing there's nothing I can do to stop it. So I work myself half to death because at least I can make sure she's comfortable, make sure she has what she needs, make sure she knows she's loved even on the days she doesn't know who I am. Marcus squeezed her hand. You're a good person, Emma Chen. No, Emma said. I'm just a person who loves her grandmother. There's nothing special about that. You're wrong, Marcus said. A lot of people in your situation would have found a state facility and moved on with their lives. You're sacrificing everything to take care of her. That's not just good. That's extraordinary. Emma looked uncomfortable with the praise. I'm just doing what anyone would do. You're doing what you think is right, Marcus said. Which is what makes you extraordinary. They sat in silence for a moment. Hands still linked across the table, the morning sun streaming through the diner windows and turning the cheap laminate table into something almost beautiful. I understand now, Emma finally said. Understand what? Why you wanted to help me. Because you couldn't help your daughter. And I'm sorry, but I still can't accept your money. It wouldn't be right. I know, Marcus said, and I respect that. But maybe you'd let me help in other ways? Like what? Emma asked suspiciously. Like eating breakfast, Marcus said. When's the last time you had a real breakfast? Not toast I'm supposed to serve you but never actually eat? Emma flushed. That's not important. It is important, Marcus countered. Let me buy you breakfast. Real food. Here, at this diner, nothing fancy. You eat, I'll eat, we'll talk. That's it. Emma studied him. Why do you care if I eat? Because I spent 5 years not caring about anything, Marcus said honestly. And now I care about you. I don't understand why yet. I just know that I do. You barely know me, Emma pointed out. Then let me get to know you better, Marcus said. One breakfast at a time. Emma looked at him for a long moment, searching his face for something. Finally, she nodded. Okay, one breakfast. But I pay for my own food. Emma, I have billions of dollars. I'm aware, Emma said, but I need to pay for my own food. It's important to me. Okay, Marcus conceded. You pay for yours, I'll pay for mine. Deal. Emma smiled, a real smile this time that lit up her whole face and made her eyes crinkle at the corners. Deal. Marcus smiled back, and in that moment, surrounded by the smell of bacon and coffee in a cheap diner in Midtown Manhattan, he felt happier than he'd felt in 5 years. They stayed like that until Emma's break was over, just talking, just being, two broken people finding unexpected comfort in each other's company. And when Emma went back to work, she kept glancing over at his booth with that small smile on her face, the smile that was starting to feel like home. The Tuesdays became a ritual. Every week, Marcus would arrive at Rosie's at the same time, take the same booth, order the same coffee and toast, and every week at 9:30, Emma would take her break and join him. They'd talk about everything and nothing, peeling back layers slowly, learning each other in increments. Marcus told her about building his company from nothing, about the ruthlessness required to succeed in Manhattan real estate, about the loneliness of having everything money could buy but no one to share it with. Emma told him about her grandmother's declining health, about the balance between school and work and caretaking, about her dreams of becoming a nurse so she could help people the way she wished someone could help her grandmother. Some mornings they talked about heavy things, and both ended up with tears in their eyes. Other mornings they discovered shared loves of old movies and terrible puns and the kind of laughter that made other customers look over curiously. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, something shifted between them. It wasn't just comfort anymore. It was attraction. It was the way Emma's breath caught when Marcus smiled. It was the way Marcus's heart raced when he saw her walk through the door. It was the way their hands found each other across the table every single Tuesday without fail. That simple touch becoming as necessary as breathing. It was the way they'd both started counting down the days until Tuesday came around again. On the 6th Tuesday, Marcus arrived to find Emma already waiting at his booth, 2 coffees already poured. Her face lit up with barely contained excitement. "You're early," Marcus said, sliding in across from her, their knees bumping under the table in a contact that sent warmth racing through him. "I wanted to tell you something," Emma said, practically bouncing in her seat. "I got the promotion." "Wait, what?" Marcus felt his face split into a grin. "The nursing position at the hospital? I thought you said they usually only promoted from the current staff?" "They do," Emma said, her eyes shining. "But I guess my supervisor put in a really strong recommendation. She said I'm one of the hardest workers she's ever seen, and they'd be idiots not to give me a chance. I start next month. It's more money. Not a lot more, but enough that I can cut back on one of my other jobs. Maybe actually sleep occasionally." "Emma, that's incredible," Marcus said, and found himself reaching across to take both her hands. "I'm so proud of you." Emma beamed at him, and Marcus was struck by how beautiful she was when she smiled like that, how the weariness fell away and she looked young and vibrant and full of hope. "Thank you," she said, "for everything." "I didn't do anything," Marcus protested. "You did," Emma insisted. "These Tuesdays, talking to you, it reminded me that there's more to life than just surviving, that I'm allowed to want things, to dream about things. You helped me remember who I want to be, not just who I have to be right now." Marcus felt something swell in his chest, Something huge and terrifying and wonderful all at once. Emma, he started, then stopped, not sure how to put into words what he was feeling. Emma was looking at him with those deep brown eyes, her hands warm in his, and he saw the exact moment when her expression shifted from joy to something else. Something heated. Something that made his breath catch. "Marcus," she said softly. "Yes? Kiss me," she whispered. His heart stopped. "What?" "I said kiss me," Emma repeated, her voice trembling slightly but her gaze steady. "I've been thinking about it for 3 weeks. Every time you smile, every time you touch my hand, every time you look at me like I'm something precious. So kiss me. Before I lose my nerve." Marcus was aware that they were in the middle of a diner, that there were other customers around, that Emma was technically working. None of it mattered. He leaned across the table, cupped her face gently in his hands and kissed her. It was soft at first, tentative, just a brush of lips that sent electricity racing through his entire body. But then Emma made a small sound in her throat and leaned into him. And the kiss deepened into something that made the entire world fall away. She tasted like coffee and hope, and something indefinably sweet. Her lips were soft. Her hands had come up to grip his wrists, and Marcus felt 5 years of ice completely shatter. Felt himself come back to life in a rush of sensation and emotion that was almost overwhelming. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Emma's eyes were wide and dazed. "Oh," she whispered. "Yeah," Marcus agreed, his voice rough. "Oh." They stared at each other across the table, still holding on, both of them trembling slightly. Around them, the diner had gone quiet. Frank was staring from behind the counter. The regular customers were watching with undisguised interest. Emma suddenly seemed to realize they had an audience and flushed bright red. "I'm going to get fired," she said, but she was smiling. "Worth it," Marcus said, and kissed her again, quick and sweet. Emma laughed, actually laughed, the sound bright and free. "You're trouble, Marcus Ashford." "You have no idea," Marcus said. And then, because he'd been thinking about it for weeks, because the kiss had made everything clear, he asked, "Have dinner with me." A real dinner. Not Tuesday morning coffee, an actual date. Emma bit her lip. "I work most nights." "I know," Marcus said. "Which is why I'm asking you to let me take you somewhere after your shift. Somewhere nice. Somewhere that isn't this diner, as much as I've come to love this place." Emma looked torn. "Marcus, I don't have anything to wear to the kind of places you probably go." "I don't care what you wear," Marcus said honestly. "You could show up in your uniform and you'd still be the most beautiful woman in the room." Emma's eyes got suspiciously shiny. "You can't just say things like that." "Why not?" "Because it makes me want to kiss you again." "So kiss me again," Marcus said. "I'm not complaining." Emma laughed and shook her head. "I'm working. Then say yes to dinner, and you can kiss me as much as you want later." Emma took a shaky breath. "Okay. Yes. Dinner. But somewhere normal, okay? Not some place with a Michelin star where I'll be terrified to touch anything." "Deal," Marcus said, though he was already planning to take her somewhere special. Somewhere worthy of how extraordinary she was. They spent the rest of Emma's break just looking at each other, hands linked, both of them grinning like idiots. And when Emma went back to work, she kept touching her lips, and Marcus kept watching her with a smile that made his face ache from disuse, but felt absolutely perfect. That night, Marcus called his assistant. "Patricia, I need you to make a reservation." "Sir?" Patricia said cautiously. "It's midnight." "Are you all right?" "I'm perfect," Marcus said. "I need a reservation for 2 at 11 Madison Park. This Saturday night. The best table they have, sir. That restaurant is booked months in advance." "I know," Marcus said. "So use my name and offer to make a donation to whatever charity they support, whatever it takes. There was a pause. "This is for a date. It's for Emma," Marcus corrected. "The waitress?" Patricia's voice had climbed an octave. "You're taking the waitress who spilled coffee on you to 11 Madison Park?" "Her name is Emma," Marcus said firmly. "And yes, I am. If she doesn't kill me first for ignoring her request for somewhere normal." "Sir." Patricia started, then stopped. "You sound happy." "I am happy," Marcus said, and realized it was true. "For the first time in 5 years, I'm actually happy." "Good," Patricia said softly. "Then I'll make the reservation." "Thank you," Marcus said. "And Patricia?" "Yes, sir?" "Clear my schedule for Saturday. The whole day." "All of it?" "All of it," Marcus confirmed. "I have something more important to do." And then he hung up and spent the rest of the night staring at the ceiling of his penthouse, thinking about brown eyes and coffee-flavored kisses and the way Emma said his name. Thinking that maybe, just maybe, he was finally ready to live again. Saturday arrived wrapped in the kind of perfect spring evening that made Manhattan feel like the center of the universe. Marcus spent the entire day in a state of nervous energy that his staff had never seen before. He changed suits 3 times, got his hair cut, bought flowers, then threw them away because they seemed too formal, then bought different flowers. By the time 6 o'clock arrived, he was pacing his penthouse like a caged animal, checking his watch every 30 seconds. Emma had agreed to let him pick her up from her grandmother's apartment in Queens, a concession that had taken significant convincing. She'd been embarrassed about where she lived, but Marcus had insisted. A real date meant picking her up properly. The drive to Queens felt longer than any business trip Marcus had ever taken. Thomas navigated through traffic while Marcus sat in the back, heart racing, palms actually sweating for the first time since his first major business presentation. When they pulled up outside a modest apartment building in Flushing, Marcus took a deep breath and got out. The building was old but well-maintained, the kind of place where immigrant families worked hard to build lives in a new country. Marcus climbed 3 flights of stairs, found apartment 3C, and knocked. The door opened to reveal Emma, and Marcus forgot how to breathe. She was wearing a simple navy blue dress that she'd probably owned for years. Her hair was down for the first time since he'd known her, falling in soft waves around her face, and she'd put on just enough makeup to make her eyes look impossibly large. She was stunning. "Hi," she said shyly. "Hi." Marcus managed. You're... Wow, Emma laughed, some of her nervousness dissipating. "That's not actually a sentence." "You look beautiful," Marcus said. "Absolutely beautiful." Emma blushed. "You look pretty good yourself. Can I meet her?" Marcus asked. "Your grandmother?" Emma's face did something complicated. "She's not having a good day today. She thinks I'm my mother. But yes, if you want." "I'd love to," Marcus said honestly. Emma led him into the small apartment. It was cramped but immaculately clean, filled with photos and memories of a life well lived. An elderly woman sat in a wheelchair by the window, looking out at the street below with vague, unfocused eyes. "Mama," Emma said gently in Mandarin, switching languages with unconscious ease. "I want you to meet someone. This is Marcus." The old woman turned, and Marcus saw Emma's eyes in her face, though dimmed by age and illness. She looked at Marcus for a long moment, then smiled. "You're the boy who loves my daughter." Emma went very still beside him. Marcus felt his heart clench. "Yes," he said simply honestly. "I am." The old woman nodded. "Good. She needs someone who will take care of her. She takes care of everyone else." "I will," Marcus promised. "I'll take care of her." Emma's grandmother seemed satisfied with that and turned back to the window. Emma grabbed Marcus's arm and pulled him toward the door, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "She doesn't know it's me," Emma whispered as they stepped into the hallway. She thinks I'm my mother and you're my father. But she remembered that my mother needed someone to take care of her. Even lost in her own mind, she still worries. Marcus pulled Emma into his arms, holding her as she trembled against him. She's still in there, he said softly. The love is still there. Emma nodded against his chest. I know, it just hurts sometimes. I know, Marcus repeated. And he did. He remembered the last days with Lily, when the pain medication made her confused, when she'd sometimes forget who he was. Love doesn't disappear even when memory does. They stood like that for a moment, Emma gathering herself, Marcus just holding her. Finally, she pulled back and wiped her eyes carefully. Sorry. I'm ruining my makeup before we even leave. You're perfect, Marcus said. And I mean that. Emma smiled waveringly. Take me somewhere beautiful? Absolutely, Marcus said. The car ride into Manhattan was quiet, Emma watching the city lights blur past the window, her hand held securely in Marcus's. She seemed nervous about where they were going, kept smoothing her dress, checking her reflection in the window. When they pulled up outside 11 Madison Park, Emma's eyes went huge. Marcus, this is... You said somewhere normal. I lied, Marcus admitted, and before you protest. Just know that I wanted to bring you somewhere as special as you are. This place serves the best food in the city. You deserve to experience it. I can't afford this, Emma said, panic creeping into her voice. You're my guest, Marcus said firmly, and this is non-negotiable. Please, Emma, let me do this for you. Emma looked torn, but finally nodded. Okay, but just this once. Just this once, Marcus agreed, though he was already planning all the other places he wanted to take her, all the experiences he wanted to share. The restaurant was everything Marcus had promised. Elegant without being stuffy, intimate without being crowded, the kind of place where every detail was perfected. They were shown to a corner table with a view of the park, and Emma spent the first 10 minutes just staring around in wonder. This is incredible, she whispered. Just wait until you taste the food, Marcus said. The meal that followed was a revelation. Course after course of beautifully prepared food, each dish a work of art, each flavor perfectly balanced. Emma was hesitant at first, nervous about using the right fork, worried about proper etiquette, but Marcus kept her laughing with stories about his own first experience at a restaurant like this, when he'd been a nervous 22-year-old trying to impress a potential investor, and had accidentally drunk from the finger bowl. By the third course, Emma had relaxed, her natural curiosity taking over as she asked questions about each dish. Delighted by the explanations from their attentive waiter, Marcus watched her experience everything with such genuine joy, such appreciation for every detail, and felt something in his chest expand until it almost hurt. Somewhere between the fourth and fifth courses, Emma reached across the table and took his hand. Thank you, she said softly. For this. For all of it. For making me feel special. You are special, Marcus said. You're the most special person I've ever met. Emma shook her head. I'm just a waitress from Queens. You're a woman who works 3 jobs to take care of her grandmother, Marcus corrected, who's fighting to finish her degree while managing responsibilities that would break most people, who has more strength and determination in her little finger than most people have in their whole bodies, who made me feel alive again when I thought I was dead inside. You're extraordinary, Emma Chen. Don't ever let anyone, including yourself, tell you otherwise. Emma's eyes filled with tears. You're going to make me cry in this fancy restaurant. Cry if you want, Marcus said. You're allowed to feel things. I should know. I spent 5 years not letting myself feel anything. It's overrated. Emma laughed, wiping her eyes. How do you do that? Do what? Make me laugh when I'm about to cry. It's a gift, Marcus said solemnly. One of my few talents. You have plenty of talents, Emma said. Like what? Being brilliant at business. Being generous. Being kind. Making me feel seen in a way no one ever has. Marcus felt his throat tighten. Emma. He started, then stopped. There were words crowding his throat. Huge words. Words that felt too big to say in a restaurant even if it was the best restaurant in the city. Words he wasn't sure he was ready for. Emma seemed to sense his struggle. "It's okay," she said gently. "You don't have to say anything. Just keep being you. That's enough." But it wasn't enough. Marcus wanted to give her everything. Wanted to solve all her problems, erase all her worries, make her life as easy as she'd made his heart feel light. And he knew she wouldn't let him, wouldn't accept his money or his help in any direct way. But maybe there were other ways. The rest of the dinner passed in comfortable conversation, in shared laughter and stolen glances and the kind of easy intimacy that usually took months or years to develop. By the time dessert arrived, a stunning creation of chocolate and gold leaf that made Emma gasp in delight, Marcus had made a decision. After dinner, instead of taking Emma straight home, he asked Thomas to drive them to Central Park. "It's late," Emma said uncertainly. "It's not safe." "I have Thomas," Marcus pointed out. "And I want to walk with you, please?" Emma nodded, and they walked into the park, the city lights creating a magical glow around them, the spring air sweet with the scent of flowers. They walked in silence for a while, hands linked, just enjoying being together. Finally, Marcus led her to a bench overlooking the lake. "Sit with me?" he asked. Emma sat, and Marcus took a deep breath. "I want to tell you something," he said. "Okay," Emma said cautiously. 5 years ago when Lily died, I made a choice to shut down, to stop feeling. It seemed like the only way to survive, but what I didn't realize was that I wasn't surviving. I was just existing, going through motions, building an empire that meant nothing because there was no one to share it with." He turned to face her fully. "And then you spilled coffee on me, and everything changed. You changed me, Emma. You made me remember what it feels like to be human, to care about someone, to want to wake up in the morning not because there's business to do but because I might get to see you smile." Emma was crying now, tears streaming down her face in the lamplight. "Marcus," she whispered. "I'm falling in love with you," Marcus said. "I know it's fast. I know we've only known each other a few weeks. But I can't pretend anymore. I can't do these Tuesday morning coffees and hold your hand and kiss you and pretend it's casual. It's not casual for me. You're not casual for me. You're everything." The silence that followed felt eternal. Emma stared at him, tears on her cheeks, her expression unreadable. Marcus felt panic start to set in. Had he said too much? Moved too fast? Scared her away? Then Emma lunged forward and kissed him. It was desperate and messy and perfect, her hands in his hair, his arms around her waist, pulling her as close as physically possible. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Emma pressed her forehead to his. "I'm falling in love with you too," she whispered. "I tried not to. I told myself it was impossible, that we're from different worlds, that it could never work. But I can't help it. When I'm with you, I feel seen. I feel valued. I feel like maybe I'm allowed to want something just for me." "You are allowed," Marcus said fiercely. "You're allowed to want everything. And I want to give you everything. I want to take care of you the way you take care of everyone else. I want to make your life easier. I want, Emma, I want forever with you." "Is that crazy?" "Maybe," Emma said, but she was smiling. "But I want it too." They kissed again, softer this time, a promise sealed in the sweetness of spring air and city lights and two hearts that had found each other against all odds. When Marcus finally took Emma home that night, walking her up to her apartment, kissing her goodnight at her door, he felt like he was floating. He felt alive in a way he'd forgotten was possible. And when he got back to his penthouse, he stood at the window looking out over Manhattan and smiled. Really smiled. The kind of smile that reached his eyes, and transformed his whole face, the kind of smile he'd thought he'd lost forever. The kind of smile that Emma had given back to him, one spilled cup of coffee at a time. The months that followed were a study in contrasts and unexpected harmony. Marcus's world and Emma's world were vastly different, separated by income and status and lifestyle in ways that should have been insurmountable. But somehow, impossibly, they made it work. Marcus started spending his Tuesday mornings differently. Instead of just coffee at the diner, he'd arrive early enough to help Emma with her shift, clearing tables and refilling coffee cups with such earnest incompetence that it made her laugh. Frank had been skeptical at first, this billionaire in expensive casual wear wanting to bus tables, but Emma's happiness was obvious enough that he'd allowed it. The regular customers loved it, this incongruous sight of Manhattan's most successful real estate mogul serving them pancakes with endearing clumsiness. Emma started letting Marcus into more of her life. He met her grandmother on her good days, sat with them both, and listened to stories of immigration and struggle and triumph. He learned to make congee the way Emma's grandmother liked it, learned basic Mandarin phrases that made the old woman smile, learned that family wasn't about blood or obligation, but about showing up and caring. On Emma's rare days off, Marcus would take her places. Not always expensive restaurants, though there were more of those, but also to free concerts in the park, to museums on discount days, to street fairs in Queens where they'd eat dumplings and laugh at Marcus's terrible attempts to use chopsticks. Emma showed him her world, the rich tapestry of immigrant neighborhoods and working-class communities, the kind of authentic life he'd lost touch with in his pursuit of success. And slowly, so slowly, Emma barely noticed it happening, Marcus started making changes. He used his connections to get Emma's grandmother into a better care facility, but he did it through her new nursing job, making it seem like an employee benefit rather than his intervention. He quietly paid off Emma's student loans by routing it through a scholarship program his company had established years ago, making Emma one of dozens of recipients, so she wouldn't refuse. He created opportunities that Emma could accept with dignity, ways to help that didn't feel like charity. But there were still hard moments, times when the difference in their worlds created friction. 3 months into their relationship, Marcus made a mistake. He'd invited Emma to a charity gala, one of the glittering Manhattan events where Manhattan's elite gathered to write checks and see and be seen. Emma had been anxious about it for weeks, worried about fitting in, about having the right dress, about knowing the right things to say. Marcus had assured her it would be fine, that all that mattered was that she'd be with him. He'd been wrong. The event was at the Metropolitan Museum, black tie and dripping with old money and new fortunes. Marcus had arranged for Emma to have a dress, a beautiful gown that probably cost more than she made in 3 months. She'd looked stunning in it, but he could see the discomfort in her eyes, the way she felt like she was playing dress-up in someone else's life. The evening had started out all right. Marcus had kept Emma close, introduced her to people with obvious pride, tried to shield her from the worst of the society gossip. But he'd been pulled into a conversation with a potential business partner, and in that moment of inattention, disaster struck. Emma had been standing near the bar, trying to look comfortable, when she'd overheard 2 women talking. Marcus didn't know exactly what they'd said, but he saw Emma's face go white, saw her excuse herself and disappear toward the restroom. He found her 20 minutes later in a side gallery, sitting on a bench in front of a painting, her mascara smudged from crying. "What happened?" he asked, sitting beside her and taking her hand. Emma shook her head. "It's nothing." "Emma, please. Tell me." "They were talking about me," Emma said quietly. "About how I'm obviously a gold digger. How I trapped you. How I'm not sophisticated enough for this world and everyone can see it. How it's only a matter of time before you get bored and move on to someone more suitable." Marcus felt rage surge through him. "Who said that? Give me names." "It doesn't matter," Emma said. "They're not wrong." "Yes, they are," Marcus said fiercely. "They're completely wrong. You didn't trap me. I pursued you. You're not a gold digger. You've refused to let me help you at every turn, and you are absolutely suitable for this world or any other world. More suitable than any of these people who were born into money and never had to work for anything. Emma looked at him with sad eyes. But don't you see, Marcus? I don't belong here. I'm a waitress from Queens. I work 3 jobs. I take care of my grandmother. I don't know which fork to use at fancy dinners. I don't know how to make small talk about art and investments and summer homes. This isn't my world. Then forget this world, Marcus said. I don't care about it. I only came to these things because it was expected, because it was part of maintaining the business. But none of it matters. You matter. Emma shook her head. You can't just abandon your entire life for me. I'm not abandoning anything, Marcus said. I'm choosing what's important. And you're important. You're the most important thing in my life. But what if it's not enough? Emma whispered. What if eventually you realize you want someone who fits into this world? Someone who knows how to navigate these parties and doesn't embarrass you? You could never embarrass me, Marcus said. And I don't want someone who fits this world. I want you. But the damage was done. Emma was quiet on the ride home, and when Marcus kissed her goodnight, she turned her face so his lips caught her cheek instead of her mouth. Something had shifted, and Marcus didn't know how to fix it. The following Tuesday, Emma didn't show up for her shift at the diner. Marcus waited in his usual booth, coffee growing cold. Growing increasingly worried, he finally called her, and she answered on the 5th ring. I'm sorry, she said, her voice tired. I should have texted. I'm not feeling well. Are you sick? Marcus asked. Do you need anything? Can I come over? No, Emma said quickly. I need some time to think. About us? Marcus felt his heart clench. Emma, please don't. I just need to think, Emma repeated. I'll call you soon. Okay? She hung up before he could respond. The days that followed were agony. Emma didn't call, didn't answer his messages. Marcus threw himself into work the way he used to, trying to bury the fear and hurt. But it didn't work anymore. He couldn't stop feeling, couldn't turn off his emotions the way he'd done for 5 years. Emma had changed him too fundamentally. A week passed. Then 10 days. Marcus was going out of his mind. He considered showing up at her apartment but didn't want to pressure her. Considered sending flowers, but worried it would seem like he was trying to buy her affection. Considered everything and did nothing, paralyzed by the fear that he'd already lost her. On the 12th day, his assistant Patricia buzzed him. Sir, there's someone here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's important. Who is it? Marcus asked, though his heart was already racing because somehow he knew. Emma Chen, Patricia said. Shall I send her in? Yes, Marcus said. Yes, send her in. Emma walked into his office looking exhausted and beautiful and scared. She was wearing her nursing scrubs, clearly having come straight from a shift. Her hair was pulled back messily, and she had dark circles under her eyes. Marcus wanted to pull her into his arms but forced himself to stay behind his desk, to let her speak first. I'm sorry, Emma said. For disappearing. For not calling. For being a coward. You're not a coward, Marcus said. You're allowed to have doubts. You're allowed to take time to think. I wasn't thinking, Emma said. I was running because those women at the gala said things that confirmed every fear I already had, every insecurity, every doubt about whether I deserve you or if this can possibly work. And instead of talking to you about it, I just disappeared. She took a shaky breath. But I realized something. I realized that I could protect myself by walking away. I could go back to my life before you, the 3 jobs, and the exhaustion, and the loneliness. It would hurt, but I'd survive. Or I could take a risk. I could choose to believe that you mean what you say, that you love me not despite who I am, but because of who I am. That we can build something together even if our worlds are different. I want to take the risk, Marcus. If you'll still have me. Marcus was around the desk before she finished speaking, pulling her into his arms, holding her like he'd never let go. Of course I'll have you, he said into her hair. Always. I'm so sorry, Emma, for putting you in that situation. For not protecting you better. For not making it clear to everyone that you're the most important thing in my life. I love you, Emma whispered against his chest. I love you so much it terrifies me. I love you too, Marcus said. And we're going to figure this out. Together. They stood like that for a long time, just holding each other, both of them crying a little, both of them relieved to have found their way back to each other. Finally, Emma pulled back enough to look up at him. Can we make a deal? She asked. Anything, Marcus said. Can we do less of your world and more of mine? Emma said. Less charity galas and more diners? Less society events and more time with my grandmother? I don't need fancy restaurants or expensive dresses. I just need you. Done, Marcus said immediately. Absolutely done. I never wanted that stuff anyway. I only did it because I thought I had to. But I'd rather spend every day in that diner with you than at the fanciest event in Manhattan. Emma smiled. Really smiled, for the first time since the gala. Good. Because I got you something. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small wrapped package. Marcus took it curiously and unwrapped it to find a simple mug. It was handmade. Slightly crooked, clearly made by someone learning pottery. On the side, written in careful letters, it said our Tuesday tradition. I made it in a pottery class I'm taking, Emma explained. I know it's not very good, but I wanted you to have something from me. Something that represents what we really are. Not fancy dinners or expensive suits. Just coffee and conversation and two people who found each other by accident and chose to stay. Marcus felt tears sting his eyes. It's perfect, he said. You're perfect. I'm really not, Emma said, but I'm yours. If you want me. Forever, Marcus said. I want you forever. Emma stretched up on her toes and kissed him, and Marcus kissed her back with all the fear and relief and love he'd been holding in for 12 days. When they finally broke apart, Emma smiled mischievously. So, she said. Want to get coffee? At a diner? Always, Marcus said. Always. 6 months later, Marcus stood in Emma's grandmother's room at the care facility, nervous in a way he hadn't been nervous since his first major business deal. The old woman was having a good day, lucid and present, her eyes clear as she looked at him with knowing wisdom. You want to marry my granddaughter, she said. It wasn't a question. Yes, ma'am, Marcus said. I love her very much. I know, the old woman said. I can see it. Even on my bad days when I don't remember names or faces, I can see the way you look at her. Like she's your whole world. She is, Marcus said simply. Do you have my blessing? The grandmother asked. Is that why you're here? Partly, Marcus admitted, but also because I wanted you to know that I'll take care of her. The way you took care of her. The way she takes care of you. She'll always be safe with me. Always be loved. I don't have much to offer her in terms of traditional family, but I promise to be the family she deserves. The old woman studied him for a long moment, then nodded. You're a good man, Marcus Ashford, better than you think you are. You have my blessing. But know this, if you hurt my girl, I'll haunt you. Even from the grave. I'll make sure of it. I won't hurt her, Marcus promised. I'd rather die. Good, the grandmother said. Then we understand each other. Now go. Ask her properly. Make it special. She deserves special. Marcus left the care facility and went to find Emma. She was finishing her shift at the hospital, and he waited for her in the parking lot, the ring in his pocket feeling like it weighed 1,000 pounds. When Emma emerged, tired but smiling when she saw him, Marcus felt his heart squeeze with so much love he could barely breathe. "Hi," she said, walking into his arms like coming home. "What are you doing here?" "I wanted to see you," Marcus said. "And I have a question." Emma pulled back to look at him. "What kind of question?" "The kind that's going to determine the rest of my life," Marcus said. He dropped to one knee right there in the hospital parking lot, pulled out the ring box, and watched Emma's eyes go wide. "Emma Chen," he said, his voice shaking. "You spilled coffee on me and changed my entire world. You taught me how to feel again. You showed me what really matters. You made me remember that building a life is more important than building an empire. I love you more than I knew it was possible to love anyone. Will you marry me?" Emma was crying. Her hands over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. "Yes," she said. "Yes. Yes. Absolutely yes." Marcus slid the ring onto her finger, a simple band with a single diamond because Emma had once mentioned she liked simple things, and stood to kiss her. Around them, hospital staff started clapping, having witnessed the proposal through the windows. Emma laughed and cried and kissed him again. "It's perfect," she said, looking at the ring. "You're perfect." "I'm really not," Marcus said. "But I'm yours. Forever," Emma said. "That sounds perfect to me." They got married 6 months later in a small ceremony at the diner where they'd met. Frank had closed it for the day, and they decorated it with flowers and lights until it looked magical. Emma wore a simple white dress. Marcus wore a regular suit, not the $10,000 kind. Emma's grandmother was there in her wheelchair, lucid enough to cry happy tears. Marcus's employees, the ones he'd grown closer to over the past year, were there. The regular customers from the diner. Emma's classmates from nursing school. It wasn't a society wedding. There were no tabloids, no Manhattan elite, no spectacle. It was just two people who loved each other, surrounded by people who loved them, promising to spend their lives together. When they exchanged vows, Emma promised to always make him coffee on Tuesday mornings. Marcus promised to always let her spill things on him if it meant she'd stay in his life. Everyone laughed. Everyone cried, and when the officiant pronounced them married, Marcus kissed his wife and felt like the luckiest man alive. The reception was potluck, everyone bringing dishes that meant something to them. There was congee from Emma's grandmother's recipe. There were fancy appetizers from Marcus's chef who'd insisted on contributing. There was pie from the diner. There was food from a dozen different cultures, representing all the people who'd come together to celebrate this unlikely love. During their first dance to a song playing from an old radio, Marcus held Emma close and whispered, "Thank you." "For what?" Emma asked. "For spilling coffee on me," Marcus said. "For being brave enough to take a chance on someone like me. For teaching me how to live again. For everything." "You're welcome," Emma said. "Though technically I was just clumsy. Best clumsiness of my life," Marcus said. Emma laughed, that bright, free laugh he loved, and Marcus thought about how far they'd both come. From that first Tuesday morning when he'd been frozen inside, unable to feel anything, to this moment where he was so full of feeling he could barely contain it. They'd built something beautiful together. Something real, not based on money or status or societal expectation, but on genuine love and mutual respect, and the kind of partnership that made both of them better. As the party continued around them, Marcus looked at his wife and smiled. Really smiled, the kind of smile that transformed his whole face and made Emma's eyes light up with answering joy. And he thought about a truth he'd learned over the past year. Sometimes the most extraordinary things in life begin with disasters. With spilled coffee and ruined suits and terrified brown eyes. With accidents that crack open carefully constructed walls and let light flood in. With taking risks on strangers who turn out to be everything you've been missing. 5 years he'd spent not smiling. 5 years frozen in grief and loneliness, and self-imposed isolation. But it only took one moment, one clumsy waitress, one spilled cup of coffee to bring him back to life. And now he planned to spend the rest of his life smiling. With Emma by his side, he finally understood what his daughter Lily had known all along. That life was meant to be lived fully, felt deeply, celebrated wildly. That love was worth the risk of pain. That showing up for people mattered more than any business deal ever could. Sometimes the best things in life really do come from the most unexpected places. Sometimes broken people can heal each other. Sometimes a billionaire who hasn't smiled in 5 years can find his way back to joy through coffee spilled on a $10,000 suit. And sometimes, just sometimes, love is exactly as simple and complicated as two people choosing each other. Every single day, no matter what the world says. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel. Leave your like and become a member to get early access to upcoming stories. And if you felt it was really worth listening to, click the super thanks button. Your gesture makes all the difference and helps us continue bringing narratives that move hearts.